Hey again, everyone, and welcome back to the channel for another installment in our new figure showcase series. And for today's installment, we're taking a look at a figure I've been waiting for a while, actually, and it is the Paul Atreides by Inart from Dune. I guess it's from the first movie, although there are things that you could do here to make it look like it's from the second. Now, I say I've been waiting for this for a while because it did get released a long time ago, but thanks to Inart's batch system, it did take a while to get to me, but it's finally here. Now, there are two versions of this. The only difference, I believe, is one is rooted and one is standard, which is the one I ended up getting, right? Just to save a little money. I didn't feel like I absolutely needed to get the rooted version. So this is my first standard in our product. And look, I love the movie, right? Dune was my favorite book. I thought that Denis Villeneuve did a great job with the movies, especially Dune Part 2. I think once you look at everything cohesively, it is probably one of the most amazing ways to capture the story of Dune and Paul Atreides. So I was very excited to get this figure in hand. And I did have the Og Toys one on order, but I didn't feel the need to have two of these, so I just opted to wait for the Inart version. So look, this is also something that I ordered directly from them, and the only added thing that we're going to take a look at that they provided was as a order exclusive from the Inart store was the little Muad'Dib, the little desert mouse. So look, what you're seeing here is basically everything Inart is giving us, which a slew of hands. You're getting all the different accessories. You do get a secondary head sculpt as well, which is pretty neat, right? And that's always an added bonus. And then you do get that magnetic display stand as well as that cloak, which is enough to give you an alternate look. But let's jump into those accessories a little bit more in depth, and we're going to start with the hands. Now, with all my Inart figures, right, to date, the Harry Potter ones, I've noticed that they give you an array of hands, right? They do not cheap out on these. Now, most of these are the gloved hands that go with the still suit, but I do like that they did give you these bare hands, particularly the one with the Atreides ring, right? The family ring and the crest. So I think that's kind of a nice addition, especially in light of what happens in the second movie. But detail on these is pretty phenomenal, right? I think for hand accessories, these are done remarkably well, and a lot of credit goes to Inart for that. Then you do get the hooks that they use to ride the sandworms. Now these are delicate. I will tell you that I had a little break happen. Nothing that can't be repaired, but just be very careful when you're handling these. They are extendable batons, right, like we see in the movie, and then the anchor blades do kind of prop out. So very nicely done, lots of detail and texture on the handle, and a great recreation. Now you do also get the dagger that we see Paul use, right, along with the sheath. Detail on these is pretty nicely done, right, with that faux wood and then kind of that almost tooth. I think it's kind of almost like an ivory blade from the sandworm tooth. So very nicely done, very well detailed with the sheath that also has an emblazoned emblem on it. So altogether, you can definitely put it together. I do wish that it could fit on the figure a little bit better, but great accessory to have and very much an important one for Paul Atreides. Then you do get the thumper. Right, this is the unit that the denizens of Dune used to call the sandworm. So really nicely done. I love the weathering on the surface where it shows like a really worn metal. And then it does open, although again, it would have been nice if the display stand had kind of a little prop on it where you could have assembled this and dropped it in. As it stands, it's just an accessory that he can hold. Now, then you do get a couple of extra pieces. You do get the shield generator that he wears on his hand. You do also get that pistol of sorts, which does have a spring-loaded action on the back and does kind of fold down into a more compact version. And then you do have, I think that's almost like a tracker of sorts for them to, almost like a GPS, but I forget exactly what it is. Detail on these is all phenomenal, right? The paint apps, the weathering, it's really well done. And like I said, this is the exclusive from the Inart store, and you do get that little Muad'Dib. It's a really small ad, but it's really well done. And again, the importance to Dune, especially to Paul Atreides, is critical. So I'm very happy to have had the chance to get this. And for such a small piece, I think they did a lot of great work on the detailing, the tail, right, the eyes, everything looks really top notch here. Now, one of the pieces that really stood out for me was the backpack. We see him wear it, right, the detail again here, pretty nicely done. Weathering on everything from the straps to the outer surface and outer shell. It's just really well done. And then it does prop open, and you do have additional accessories here within. Now, originally I thought that you might be able to put other accessories that he has, like the thumper in here, but there are no slots for that. But really well done, and if you wanted to, you can remove some of these as well. So I think this is definitely one of the highlight elements, although again, you're not really going to be seeing a lot of this when you have it on the figure. And then you have the display stand, which is really nicely done, right? Creating kind of that surface from the I don't know if I'd call them the bases, but from kind of the royal house on Dune, with the Dune and Paul stamped on the front. This is the magnetic base that we get from Inart, so we'll see how that works out. Now, jumping into the sculpts. Again, to date, I have just had the rooted hair Harry Potter figures, right? The Ron Weasley and the Harry. This is my first kind of chance with the standard, and I have to admit, it looks really well. I think they did a good job with the standard hair. I just, for the extra money, I don't know that I needed the rooted, especially when you could basically get the same accessories. So looks great. I think the likeness to Timothée Chalamet is there, right? The detail on the eyes, it's so lifelike, right? I don't think I've been disappointed so far by any of the likenesses in the Inart figures that I've had, and I think this is one of the this is a great likeness to the figure. Now, the alternate one is the fully masked sculpt. I'm glad they gave it to us, right? I think it definitely goes with the full still suit look. For me, though, with how good the unmasked sculpt looks, this is one that's going to remain in the box, right? It's just, I appreciate it, right? It has all the detailing on the face mask. It has all the same detailing on the eyes, but it's really well done. But when you have such phenomenal sculpt, this was just something I can't see myself using. Now, the figure overall, really well done. I do have the Og Toys figures, like I mentioned, with the exception of the still suit Paul, just because this one was coming out and I opted to just wait. Now, the detail, pretty amazing. I think the paneling, right, the fabric, all the cooling systems on the suit itself, overall really well done. The weathering, I think, is really top notch here for a suit that's supposed to have endured the desert atmosphere and environment for Dune. I think you're definitely seeing that reflected in the suit. Now, you do also see that rebreather that's hanging off of it. You'll see in some of the subsequent shots that is no longer attached. So there are some issues with the figure, right? As beautifully done as it is, as beautifully detailed as it is, that rebreather, right, can sit on the nose, but it does take a little kind of play to do it. And you'll see in mine, right, they basically detach from the wire. So that's something that, again, I can repair myself, but just it's a very delicate element, and even without that much manhandling, trying to be as gentle as possible, it still broke on me, right? But overall thoughts on the figure. It's a gorgeous figure, right? It's stunning. Would I say it's one of my top pickups of the year? Yeah, it's in that running, right? I think from a likeness perspective, from the accessory perspective, there's a lot here to like, right? And I think it is probably one of the better representations of Paul Atreides, or one of the best 6-scale representations of Paul Atreides that we've gotten to date. So a lot of credit to Inart. They are going on with their lines, right? In particular, the Lord of the Rings and the Harry Potter line. So part of me does hope that they revisit this and try to give us another version of this character. And as you can see, right, I did use some tack to kind of hold the head of the hook in place because it did detach. Not a break, not a bad break, just some glue that wasn't really well kind of locked. So just with a little manhandling, the head popped off, and it's not even pressure pegged in, so it does need a little glue just to put it back in. That is a little disappointing, but overall thoughts, I think it's a great figure. I think if you're a fan of Dune in particular, this is a figure you're gonna like. Do I think the rooted hair was necessary? I don't, and I think because I had the option to basically get the exact same accessories with the sculpted, I ended up saving some money on it and still getting what I think is a really great solid figure. So again, really excited to have this one. Hopefully it's not the end of the Dune line, and a lot of great detail. Just be careful because it is a slightly delicate figure, especially with some of the accessories and some of the elements of the suit. But overall, stuff I can fix. That's probably just some of the stuff that holds it back a little bit. But yeah, solid figure overall. So if you're a Dune fan and you're looking for one, this might be a figure for you. So thanks for checking this out, and we'll touch base on the next video.